You guys, hello everyone. We are super excited to be here and see everybody. This is awesome. I am so excited to have you all here. Sometimes we get a little bit of a delay from what my going fast says. So I just want to say welcome everyone and thank you for being here. This is a really special event. We're really excited to be here with our guest, Jennifer Kuhns, and she's going to share so much about what's happening right behind her, all around her, in the middle of a Sunday, if you can believe that, in Washington right now. So good thing she does not have rain happening right now, but she'll get into how the challenges she has faced in this last year. So we just want to say a quick little disclaimer. If you haven't had a chance to jump on to Mosaic Arts Online yet, and I'll probably say this again at the end when maybe we have a few more people on, but we are just in the last few hours of our summer sale at both Mosaic Arts Online and Create Arts Online. So tons of mixed media choices. If you're interested in learning any of those, we have a lot of crossover artists, Lori Micah, Catherine England, really great stuff over there. Same coupon code, summer 2024. Sale's been great. I know you guys are gonna have so many new things to learn and be polishing up on some of your skills. And after today, you might even have a little more excitement to get back to your MAO courses and add a few more to them. So I just want to thank you all again for being here. And as always, you can just put your name in the chat where you're coming from. We're thrilled to have you all here. So in case you were unaware, I'm going to do a quick little reading just because I can't quite do the camera and the reading, and I did want to get this right. We've been doing these type of lives since the beginning of 2020, obviously better known as the pandemic. And many of you have been following us since then, and we have hours and hours and hours of free content there. We have art talks, we have these kinds of conversations, interview style, we have demos, we have all of our intros there. It's kind of a space where you could, check out what you want or binge, grab a glass of wine, get in bed on a Sunday night and just hit play on YouTube on the Mosaic Arts Online channel and just see what you would love to do. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for us. And then also feel free to ask questions in the comments. We answer all the comments. We're happy to engage with everyone. YouTube is a really great place to kind of be the gateway into Mosaic Arts Online and Create Arts Online. You just get some really good information there. And we love having this as sort of our version of a podcast. I don't think I'll ever do a podcast because they haven't created the 8th day of the year yet, but of the week, I mean. So it's just going to be our YouTube channel and these really fabulous times that we can get together with our artists and they can jump on and share where they are at in their studios or in the location of an installation. So saying that, as you all know, Jennifer Kuhns is our guest and she is a powerhouse. And it has been so fun to watch her career evolve into what you guys are going to see today, because I think this is the opus. And so today she's going to share a little bit about her background. We're going to make it really short because you can learn more about that in one of our online courses, how she got to where she is today, literally, and what it takes to create 175 square foot mosaic. I mean, seriously, I'm pretty impressed when I say I've done a 44 square foot one. She's done 175 now. It's been a year in the making. And she is going to share everything from her application to apply for this project, the design, the fabrication, and then obviously where she's at is the installation. So it's without further ado, I don't need to talk anymore. I do have my questions to ask Jenn, but I am going to let Jenn go.
All right. I was hoping that I would have more of this up by the time we had this event so that you could see more of it all put together, but I think it's also kind of interesting to see what it's like to be midway through an installation project. And I actually just started, this would be the 3rd day. So the first day, is a lot of marking and figuring things out. And so it's been coming along slowly, but you'll get to see a little bit of what's in and all the sections that I have around me that are ready to go in.
I'm so excited. And you have a couple assistants there that are going to help us be able to spin around the project. So before we dive in, I think it's only fair that we do give our viewers just a Cliff Notes version of your background. You have been doing this for 20 plus years. You are a professional mosaic artist. This is how you make your money. This is not a side hustle. And so I think there's a lot of people out there that would love to know that no matter where they are in life, you were in your 20s or 30s, but wherever they are in life, what it took to these building blocks to get to where you are today.
Yeah, I never thought that this would be in my future. It never seemed feasible, realistic. So I did spend most of my 20s trying to figure out what my job was going to be and doing art part-time. And I was making things and selling things, and I was trying everything. I was doing ceramics and lino cuts and bookmaking and collage, and so I did everything. I was looking for my niche, and I hadn't discovered mosaic at all. And I was selling a lot of recycled art by the time I hit about 30, and I was going to recycled art fairs, and I began incorporating mosaic. I started, just like collecting tiles from used secondhand and offcuts from people I knew. And I was just chopping those up with a hammer in a burlap bag and sticking them around other things. Mostly I wasn't making pictures out of them so much. And then my husband got a job at a school. He got his first teaching job, where he still is. And there was an art room attached to his class, and it had been a glass art room. So he decided he would restart the art program and do glass art, even though he had no experience with it. So he brought in instructors, and he took the kids on field trips. And at that point, we had a little one. We had a toddler who would come with me, and I would chaperone those classes. And that's how I learned how to cut glass. Even though what I was interested in was mosaic, and what they were learning was more traditional, like leading and fusing and things, which I found didn't interest me. I didn't enjoy it as much as I do mosaic, but I loved the glass and as a material. I loved the colors that were available and all the different textures and the types of glass that I could get my hands on. And I learned how to collect the scraps from people in my community who did those other kinds of glass art, but they would have scrap buckets, and that's what I would use. So I was continuing with that whole recycled art theme, and I loved that until the SAMA conference in 2009. That was my first one, where it opened up my eyes to all of the ways you could use mosaic, and my mind was blown. I came back saying that's what I want to do. It became clear is functional mosaic, and I want to do larger scale, site specific, architecturally installed commission work. And I wanted to be able to put it on walls and in floors and on counters and to do windows and to do glass on glass. And so that was what I pursued. I took a few classes, but in the early days, I really couldn't afford many classes. But I took classes from Kelly Knickerbocker, and we were friends, and she was always generous with sharing information of the things she was learning. There was more like a Yahoo group community back then, and we would share tips and adhesives that we learned about. So it was kind of got started that way. I took a class from Carol Shelkin, which opened up my mind to color. Like I loved her use of color. I wanted to learn about that. But I also discovered that I really loved that photorealistic style. So despite this is kind of my wheelhouse, this is more of my, my heart and soul is this style. I also love doing the photorealistic style, and it balances out if I have that to do as well. And I took a workshop in facilitating community mosaics, and that I've always wanted that to be a part of what I do, and I've incorporated those as maybe once a year I'll do a project that's a community project. So at that point, I came back and I decided, no, that's what I want to do. I kind of put all those other crafts aside, and I stashed them in a room and got rid of a lot of things and focused on becoming a mosaic artist. And then it was a struggle. It was ups and downs the whole time, and never really making quite enough or having steady enough work to make a living and make it work. So let's see, I'm trying to think of the order of things. I ended up working part-time for a tile setter. That was about 2011. I had done a commission. He was also working on the job. We enjoyed each other's company. We worked well together, and he needed an assistant. So I started doing that, and I learned a ton. That's where I really learned how to, how to mix thinset correctly, how to apply things to walls, how to use moisture barriers, all about, he was very meticulous, and he was really great about sharing information with me and trusting me to, saying, you can do this. You are skilled, and giving me a lot of confidence. And so I got all those nuts and bolts, and then I was still ups and downs with, being self-employed and trying to do this kind of thing as a living. When it was 2014, when I was again thinking maybe I need to find a real job. And it was Sandra Bryant from, she's a mosaic artist up on the border of Canada, north of Bellingham, Washington, at the very uppermost top left corner of the United States. And she called and asked if I wanted to take on a very difficult client. Not that the client was difficult, but that the work is really difficult. And she had been doing it for 2 years. She didn't want to do it anymore. Did I want to take it on? It would be hard, but it would be steady work. And so I said, absolutely. And so it was 2 years of grueling, very difficult work where I was fabricating. I was doing a lot of fabricating because they were giving me designs, and I was just putting them together. I was doing a lot of stone floors, but I learned through the process. I learned how to fabricate things quickly and solidly so that they could be shipped off in sections, how to crate them correctly, how to get them to a contractor so that they could set them into place and have it be a nice professional job. And then there were I think I did 15 floors, something like that for them. And they went into buildings all over the United States, including the Prudential Center and Time Warner Center, and then, other like high profile places and airports. And so that really padded my resume. So that was really in my portfolio. But then they hired me for 3 larger scale murals that were about 16 by 5 feet, all of them. They were different configurations, and then those also went into high profile exterior locations. So one's in an airport. And that gave me just really good experience and confidence to know that I could create something on that scale, strategize some ways to make it a lot easier to do the installation, to get in and out, get out of the contractor's hair as fast as possible, which then they appreciate. How to work with contractors, how to work with contracts, and all the players in that, when you're creating these kinds of projects, the designers and the project managers. And it can be kind of trippy to working with so many people and with all their ideas. And so that was a great experience. And from there, I stopped doing that, working with them in 2016, and in 2017, I was chosen for my first larger scale public art commission. I'm still in the medium scale realm. I don't have the capacity to do the real giant, big budget projects, but where I'm at is a really good level for me to be at for the size of my studio and for me to just be one person.
And now this project's taken almost a year. Have you had to turn down work, or do you have another one coming up right after this one?
I don't have anything else lined up because there's a lot going on in my life personally that I need to make time for it. One of which is that I have to have surgery on one of my hands. I've been dealing with osteoarthritis in my hands, and I'm at a point where they're telling me it's time to reconstruct the joint. So between that and some family things, like multiple different things that happen to hit all at once, and having worked on this for a full year, from the point of getting the commission through the design process. So it hasn't been a year of actual physical work, but
right.
We started this about a year ago. It's time for me to take a few months to just heal and deal with some other things in my life.
That's great. But as always, the universe kind of times it out for you. So you'll wrap this up and then you will be able to let your shoulders down in a way for this part of your life while you go manage. And then you're going to come back stronger and it's going to present you what you're ready for when that time comes. So I love it.
And I have a lot of plans for that downtime to work on developing more instruction, and I've got a Patreon account that I've been cultivating, how to share information there, and I have lots of plans, and I want to teach more in the future, so thinking about how to make that happen, and how to present more material for instruction and updated material, because like a lot of the courses I was teaching in the past, I've learned a lot since then. There's a lot in them, but there are definitely there's more. There's like a part 2 that I think needs to happen.
When you're ready, we know you'll be here, and get ready for more online courses coming from Jenn. That's not a problem. We know that's gonna happen, but 25 is just about to get started in my world, even though it's only August. But let's back up a couple steps, because what I wanted to ask is, how did stained glass, the material, become your material?
Sorry, there's a siren in the background. I hope that's not too distracting. It's going away now. All right. Stained glass, I had mentioned before about, Mike and his classroom and learning to use it through them. And a lot of those instructors became the people who sourced stained glass to me. So initially, like, I didn't really, I'm still learning about stained glass, like about the different types and brands, because I just would get what I would get, and I'd sort through these treasure troves of buckets of glass. And nowadays I understand, what Yakagani is and what Kokomo is and what Spectrum is, and the different ways to work with them. And you become more, as you practice with it, you become more intuitive with how each glass behaves. And so that's, it becomes really exciting to get a new piece of glass from each of these companies. And the other side of, as I started doing commissions and I was sourcing stained glass, the thing I love about stained glass is it is weatherproof. It's weatherproof and it's versatile. So many other materials are subject to freeze-thaw cycles, and that can't be used in exterior, or I don't trust myself to use them because I've had too many fails, like with ceramics. Like I don't like using ceramic tile for mosaic outside because it's just too tricky with the moisture getting in and freeze-thaw cycles. But with glass, you can use it anywhere. It's thin, it's easy to cut. Once you get the techniques down, you practice for a while, it's so much more controllable. I can create like these big pieces or small pieces. There are just so many ways I can work with it. And I can do translucent mosaic with it. So there's that, so you can use it on walls and it can be opaque, but you can then make the same kind of design as glass on glass, in which, as people who have taken the class know, and have it look like it's a stained glass window, but it's not quite the same. It's, you can get into a lot more detail with your pieces. It has some versatility to it. And I like that I can make it up as I go. It's part of the reason I'm not interested in traditional stained glass art, is that you have to plan it all out. All of that, cutting and numbering and piecing back together isn't fun for me. Right. With this kind of work, I had a drawing, and you'll see in the slideshow that there was a drawing, but there's so much that was left up to me to decide as I went along. And I really like being able to place a piece, and I glue as I go. I cut a piece, I glue it, and then I decide what's going to go next. And one piece informs the next. And sometimes I'm inspired to add something completely different, and I can do it on the spot. I don't have to do all of that cutting and numbering, and I also am just a terrible solderer, so it just doesn't work for me.
Well, and it really is a different art. It's sometimes it just seems like it's the same material as far as the glass is concerned, and it really does have a different effect being the mosaic style, which is great. I mean, you know me, that's where I was as a commissioned professional artist for a long time, was all in stained glass. So I totally get what you're saying about working on the fly and being able to be creative and have your painterly kind of way, and it puts your own, you know, touch on it. It really looks like your style of art. And that's mostly what you're obviously trying to achieve, is that people know it's a Jennifer Kuhns work because you have a certain style. And that's awesome. That is what years of continuing to do what you do happens.
You strive
So
for, yeah.
kind of, yeah, right. We've kind of gotten that chronological of everything you have worked on in the Cliff Note version. So let's talk about this project. I think that's what a lot of people are really excited to hear is how did you find out about it? Talk a little bit about, it's a bit of a private commission, where it's at and how it all came together.
It's the ideal project because I was asked to do it. I didn't have to apply for it. I didn't have to compete with other artists. There was no artist Hunger Games involved like there so often is with, you know, usually you're developing a proposal and then you have to present your proposals and it's just really, the public art world can be really harsh in that way. With this, the client knew me. She knew, you know, we were acquainted. She had purchased art from me in the past, and she's somebody who I think she basically owns this block of the city and has been putting effort into creating a community here by building beautiful buildings, cultivating really beautiful businesses. She developed a park here, and what she does events on the weekends. They do music events and farmers markets and art markets and fun things like that. But there was no public bathroom here. And it's a multi-use area. You know, people are here all the time in this park, and they eat. There's a food truck area, and there's a restaurant, so people are eating and drinking, and you know. So she wanted to put in a building that would have a bathroom in it. That the bathroom, this building is multi-use too. So there are other rooms in this building, and this bathroom is actually really tight. It's really small, even though we're talking about all this square footage. If you unwrap it, it's a huge amount of mosaic, like a mind-blowing for me amount of mosaic. But the bathroom's tiny, but it's meant for the public to use. So it means it's a private client who chose me because she likes my artwork and trusted me to create a design that's very me. And it's in a public place, so it's kind of a public art project. It's just privately funded. And she brought me in, and there was just a day she texted me and said, you know, can you come by and talk to me about something? And I happened to be in town, and I had no idea what was up. And she presented this idea that she wanted to give this gift to the community, and she wanted it to be beautiful. And she wanted it to feel like a cathedral, but in a non-religious way, like more of a celebration of nature and a reverence for nature, which is exactly in line with how like my own philosophy on things, and something that I like to create in general anyway. So it was really exciting to then be able to start developing a design that just came out of me. And she didn't knock anything down. Like everything I presented to her, she loved. So it seemed like we were really aligned with what we wanted to do. She just let me go for it. And that's been a blessing. Like nobody does that. You know, I've had other projects where I got to, you know, it definitely is me and it's mine, but I was fulfilling ideas and concepts that were someone else's, which is okay. In fact, I've always liked doing it. That's something I can say is that I like to go into a space and hear from the client, hear what they want, what they're trying to invoke in the space, and then it's like an art prompt for me. So then I go away and I mull it over, and ideas come to me, and they're still mine, but this one just feels so me. Like beyond anything else I've ever done. So I really got to play with design. I also had just learned how to use Procreate, and I can't say that I learned how to use it. I've learned how to mess with it. I can muddle through. But so I was able to use Procreate to take some of my photographs from my hiking and walks in the forest and turn them into the art to help, inform this, to go from a photograph of the forest to a stained glass art piece that has the color and line that's abstracted. That's new for me. So it's been really fun developing this design.
That's awesome. And that's such a cool way to hear about it, because you're right. It is so rare that they give you, all the freedom to do exactly what you want and how you get to put really your heart and soul into it. So even though this is private and she's got all these different things happening, there was a timeline that had to happen with it. And so how did that work? And I know you've had some challenges along the way, and construction was part of it with your contractor.
Yeah, they've been really flexible, very great, very supportive. They ended up, when it became clear that this was moving more slowly than I had hoped, which was in part because my hands were getting more difficult. It was getting more difficult. The gripping is harder for me. I did have to, I got a lot of help from these kind people who are here helping me even today. I had some people come in and help with like marking the glass and doing some things that are harder on my hands. Oddly, cutting glass doesn't bother my hands. There are little things like, like making marks and moving things around. There are other aspects of it that do cause problems for my hands. And it was late spring when I got the news that I would have to have surgery, that there was no longer. I had been getting cortisone shots, and that was getting me through. And then those wore off, and they said no more. So it slowed me down. And the guys, the crew that I'm working with, started focusing more of their attention on other parts of the building to slow this part down. And we just kept in touch. There were a lot of little things that changed along the way, dimension-wise. So by the end, there were some surprises where there was a wall that the dimensions were very different, and there's a heater going right over the mosaic that I made. I said there's, and the thing is that it happens every time.
Yeah.
No matter how you plan, there are always these hiccups. My fish that's supposed to appear to be leaping up out of the toilet, the toilet's going to come up higher, and there's going to be a back that covers part of the fish. That, these are things that can happen. It's still going to be amazing, and there's nothing that can't be fixed. There's nothing that can't be adjusted. It just sometimes it takes a lot of thinking through it, figure it out.
Yeah,
I've shared a lot of it in my social media. I was
going to say, obviously, not that you and I don't talk, but your social media and just watching the posts over and over again, I was like, this is a no-brainer. And the fact that you came from, you're able to be there with the Wi-Fi and, talk about being in there. You and I maybe will be the artists of two of the most gorgeous public bathrooms that do exist. Mine's here in Santa Barbara. Yours is up there in Olympia. And it's at the the West Central Park, in Olympia.
Yeah.
Washington.
So something I should say about that is that she did ask me to kind of hold off on on telling people where it is until it's open. So just so people know, it's in a construction zone. It's all walled off, padlocks on all the gateways. And I will let everybody know when it's publicly accessible. But for right now, she's just a little worried people will come seeking it out and be frustrated that they can't get to it. So it's walled off right now.
So the mosaic is all done. You're now just completely in the installation process, right?
I'm in the installation process, yeah, which is going to sound confusing to people that the mosaic is done and now I'm installing it. If they're not familiar with how I work, which is that I attach the mosaic to mesh in sections, and then I bring them to set them on the wall. And I can show you a little of the, you know, what's going on in here. Kelly's sneaking out. I don't want to be on camera. That, you know, it's pre-grouted, so all these pieces are stiff. They're leaning up against the wall because they, you know, they're pretty stiff. But there's still enough flexibility that they can be bent. And then these ones have been installed, so they're on the wall. But they've gone in big, large sections, like a giant tile.
That it's like a giant puzzle, basically.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, so why don't you, let's take a couple steps back, because, yeah, I don't want people to miss the whole point of how the design goes down onto your work table. And then what? So now you explained everything, including the adhesive you use, because there's Laurel True out there that does it her style, which is totally legit too, obviously, with the contact paper and tile tape and everything she did in Africa and what she does when she teaches her murals. But what you're doing is a whole different technique that is just as viable and professional. So share a little bit about that.
I used to use contact paper and tile tape and all that. But, you know, I mentioned before that I was doing recycled art festivals. I have a very strong commitment to trying to be as environmentally friendly as possible. So I was having a bit of a complex about the amount of vinyl and plastic that was going into the work, which seemed unavoidable at the time. But
the way I work away,
it would all get, it just would get thrown away, the contact paper. And I would try to reuse things as well as possible, but, you know, it's limited, and you still end up just with these big wads of plastic. So just to try to stay in line with my values, and just make things easier. I mean, that stuff can be expensive too. So now I reuse plastic. So anywhere I can get, like if an appliance is delivered, I'm cutting that plastic up and I'm putting it aside, you know, whatever is usable. And I collect a lot that way. I get it from other people too. So the plastic goes under the mesh. I am a Laticrete person. So the only thin set that works for me with stained glass being it's so non-porous. It makes like most thin sets are going to work with ceramics and stone and things because they have more purchase. They have more porousness to grab onto that.
Right.
But, you know, that's what I talk about in the classes. With stained glass, you need something stickier. It has to have more of an adhesive quality to it. So I stick with Laticrete, and I have two specific types that I use. Actually, I have some right here. I use the 254 Platinum Plus is what I use to adhere to the mesh. And then I use the Platinum 254. It's really confusing that their names are almost the same. They just switched the words around. But I think it's kind of the same formula. It's just different kinds of aggregate that are in it. And one is finer and one is thicker. And so I attach it to the wall with the Platinum 254, which has a more sandy texture to it. The other one is creamier.
And then do you use, I'm just putting them in the chat because my assistant left the room. Do you use an admix as well, or just water?
No, you don't need admix with Laticrete. They put it in their mix. They put the polymers in the mix, so it's not necessary. So it's really sticky, and once I stick it on, it's not coming off, and it makes it so that, you know, here's one that is not pre-grouted. It's not pre-grouted because it goes up. There are areas that I leave ungrouted when I need to be able to shape them. I'm not sure what the dimensions are, for instance.
Right.
So something like this window, you know, is tricky. I wanted to wait until I got here to cut that out. So leaving some areas ungrouted makes that possible. But I'm waving this around to show pieces don't come off of my mesh. So I think a lot of people maybe had tried doing Mosaic on mesh and had trouble with it and gave up because their pieces fell off, maybe while they were grouting, maybe while they were moving it. And that doesn't happen for me when I use this product. So not to sound like a commercial, but
no, but it's important to hear this, because I think the old school way too is a lot of people learned how to do, you know, either tile or stained glass on mesh and would only use the dab of the PVA glue or whatever. and then they would only do the wall or their substrate and then put that down. And we now know that that's really not a very good way to do it, because you need the strength of the glass to the thin set to the mesh, and then the mesh to thin set to wall. There has to be both of those layers.
Especially when you're doing an interior project or anything that's going to be exposed to moisture. Those are really important factors. And that's,
Right.
so that's the kind of thing that we talk about in the courses, that the professional installation course in what's the one?
Garden climate.
Garden Mosaic one. Yeah.
Yeah. So then now that you're there and the mosaic is completed and you're starting to install, what is your underlayment? What did the construction guys put up on the wall for you? Is it Weddy board, Curdy? What did you get?
It's Curdy. So they put up drywall, and then they covered all of it in the Schluter Curdy. It's a moisture barrier cloth. There are two brands of moisture barrier cloth that I've used, and one is by Schluter, and the other is Laticrete now has their own version, and I have a roll of that at home, and I've used that. And there are some tricks that I've been learning to using that stuff that is going into my newer courses and classes, but also like I'm teaching at SAMA in Detroit next month. And I'll be explaining a little bit about how I use that in that class too. But so I've got there's an exciting new thing I'm doing with that I'm looking forward to sharing.
Well, anybody that was maybe at the CMA conference got to see a quick little demo of it.
Yeah.
But Jenn has Laticrete reps on speed dial. She can be talking to them at any time. Which anybody that is going to do this style of mosaic art and planning to put their life on the line by installing public installations in homes, even private, whatever, it is so important to have whoever you're using, Mapei, Laticrete, whatever you're using. Those guys know a lot. Mosaic artists know a lot. They learn from them, but it's really important to listen to these guys because the technology is constantly evolving too. There's really what we had back 20 years ago, what we have now is night and day.
And they're so great. They're so supportive. Laticrete loves mosaic artists.
Yes.
And I can't say enough about, the rep here has come to my house. He's given me things to try, have you tried this? And, here's a sample of it. He's helping me get my a floorboard in the studio, like
in your new
next weekend.
So on top of everything else, Jenn has been working in her old studio, which is about to she's building a new studio. So I don't think anyone could take on as much as you have. And the success of this whole project. Now, what I thought we would do, you do have the slide presentation that we're going to share. I do think this is a good time now.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we start with the presentation, and then I think people would love to see up close, take your phone and be able to show people up close some of the work that is up on the wall and whatever you can, because seeing it is behind you is kind of a tease. So I'm going to start the presentation, and then you're going to hopefully see them and be able to share a little bit about what's going on here. So here we are with your design, and I'll let you take it from here.
All right. So I think this was just my intro page, but it shows the design that I ended up working off of. So I think that so this was my initial design concept that I brought to the client, and I made it with markers. I was in the middle of another project, so I was just kind of throwing it together, and I just wanted to give her a sense of what the composition might be. And the idea that I had was that I wanted it to feel like here in the Pacific Northwest, where we are, we're by the Puget Sound. So I wanted to imagine that when you walk in, you're looking out over the Puget Sound in a position where you can see Mount Rainier rising up in the background. And then behind you is the forest. So the way the room is shaped, it wraps around, and it's the forest behind and the water in front, depending on which direction you're standing.
And it's such a hopeful design with so much sunshine in there for where you're from.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? We really actually have beautiful weather a lot of the year. So it just kind of gets condensed down into like December through February. It can be pretty misty and dark, but it's not too bad.
It's so beautiful. Okay.
But yeah, I wanted to have that sun face because that's kind of a signature style of mine, and it gives it some whimsy and silliness. So this, so I was working with Jill Carter, and she's a longtime friend, and she's a designer, and she does a lot of theater design. She knows how to make maquettes. She knows how to scale things. She's just really smart and creative. So she put this together. So she took that design after I worked on it in Procreate and developed it further. She took it and printed it to scale, and then, or to like a small scale version, and turned it into a maquette using foam board so that we could show the client that sense of like, when you walk through the door, what are you going to see, and how it would feel like a forest around you. So this is the I say semi-final design because this is what we sent to print. And again, Jill helped and the architect helped get it scaled up, get it so that it would match the dimensions so that I could lay it out on the table and just work over it. That's not a lot of people will ask me about scaling up designs, and that's something I do differently with every project. With this one, it made sense to print it all out because it's such a complex design and everything had to line up and flow from one wall into the next wall. So, and I needed to know where that counter was going to be and where the mirror was going to be and where the windows were going to be. So this made it a lot easier for me to follow all those lines. This is just kind of me getting started, setting glass onto mesh. I reworked the mountain to make it more true to one view of the mountain that was from a project I worked on, and I could see the mountain the whole time I was working on it. I took pictures, so I recreated the mountain here on mesh. You can go forward. This is me spontaneously deciding that a bird should be here, so I decided to put a bird on it. I made the bird separately, and I did show that on social media. I think I have YouTube videos on my YouTube channel that it showed how I made the bird and how then I then put it into a position that made sense.
Cool. We can put your YouTube channel in the chat.
Yeah.
We'll do that in a minute.
So a lot of these now are they're just progress shots showing a little bit of like the side by side. You can kind of see where I started with the octopus tentacles and then how the octopus grew into an octopus. And the octopus I designed it, it's supposed to, theoretically, and hopefully it will all work out, look from the side like the tentacles are coming out of the toilet. But then I also wanted to make sure that when you look down that edge, that you would actually see the octopus. So it's not going to be fully visible. It's more about the tentacles coming up. You go to the next one. Here's another one where I'm showing how I made the snail separate. So I didn't have the design all figured out before I started. When I got to that point, I designed the snail, made it separately, and then stuck it in and then built around it. And that's behind me right now. The heron, initially there was going to be a heron flying up high, and then it turned out they were putting lighting there. So I switched it out. I made a heron standing, so instead it'll be standing next to people as they wash their hands.
Nice. Staring at them.
Yeah. And then this shows how I then put the heron into the context of the whole design. And then was constantly reconfiguring the patterns, lining them up to each other in different ways so everything would come together.
How much space, like table space, did you have to work on at any one time? Because obviously this couldn't all be laid out in your studio.
Yeah, not enough. It was like 4x8, a big piece of plywood that I laid over everything and used as a table. And then I bought another table on wheels that I raised to that level that I could push up against it to expand the space when I needed to. And then eventually I got displaced from my studio, and I've been working in a garage that has very tight quarters. So it's been tough. I've never been able to lay the whole thing out, really.
Wow.
Began just continuing the work. This is, examples of working over the pattern of the forest. So here we can just kind of flip through.
Oh, okay.
Just wanted to give people a sense of what it looks like doing the work. Here's where I'm creating more critters and little detail elements. I wanted it to feel a little like a treasure hunt, having a few things in that people can discover. And so the next frame, I think, shows these guys in context. So after I stick them into the mosaic and build around them, and then they're also pre-grouted, so you see how they look in the context of the wall. So some of these people are here with me now. The helpers are in the slideshow, you guys. They came over and helped me when I needed extra hands, and they've been really great. I have a really nice group. More helpers that are of the animal species, mostly feline, just to show off a little of what it's like in my studio. These are the ferns that will go into one section of it. And again, if you look at the design, it doesn't look like this. There's no mushroom. There's, the ferns look different, but I changed it up as I went along. More showing, lining things up. At this point, the studio floor was cleared. It kind of worked out perfectly to get everything cleared in the old studio. So right at the right time for me to lay everything out. I got a little help with that. More images of when I was piecing things together on a floor to just see how everything was lining up.
Wow.
And then, once I was displaced and I was making more and more sections, this mural was so massive. I put this canopy outside my studio, and it's summer. So I'm thinking, it'll be safe out there. It created a shady spot for me to keep working. But this last couple weeks, it's been like winter's coming. Today, notwithstanding, today it's finally the sun's back out. But the picture on the right is, we had days of storms, including hailstorms. So I got really anxious about having the mosaic out there. It felt really vulnerable, even though, all of it's on mesh with thin set, and it's, it's pretty resilient. I didn't want it to be out there too much longer. It freaked me out. So I'm very happy to be bringing it here and getting it up on the wall where it's safe.
I can imagine. Those look like golf ball size hail.
It was crazy. In August. Here, I just put some images side by side of progress, so you can see, how things come together and go forward. And then the crew, I was really anxious about making sure everything lined up with the walls. So they actually took these thin pieces of plywood and hot glued them together to make templates of the walls. And then here they are propped up in my old studio while it was still cleared out. And that was when I was able to lay everything out on the floor. And that's also when I discovered that there were some dimensions that one wall was way off. It was very different. So I had to make some hard decisions to cut things out and reconfigure things. We can go forward. So here's, showing how the flusher for the toilet, I had left a circle open for it where it was on the template, but on the actual wall, it's in a different position. The crew is saying that they're going to work with it. They're going to make it fit. But, and then this other template is over a wall that I was like, why is it so different than the paper template? And it's just things changed, things shifted.
Right.
The door changed position, the window trim was different. So I've had to just make adjustments.
Yeah, when they did my bathroom here in Santa Barbara, they had to take an angle grinder to 6 inches of one end. And it's just like, you just do what you got to do. You want it up on the wall more than anything.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So then I took pictures while they were laid out at that point, and then I used you know, digital editing to make them look rectangular, because I had actually taken the pictures from a severe angle. They're so big. So that's how I got that. So more templates not matching up, adjustments I had to make, things I had to cut out. This is another one where I laid the other side. So that was two different sides. There was one, 2 walls, and then this is 2 walls essentially lined up, that before it was finished and tied together yet. And then this is me trying, it was just so ridiculous of me trying to put those templates over my work table, which I did just to make sure once it's on the work table that it lines up with everything, that it was the accurate dimension of the room now.
Right.
Which was really helpful. This is more, this is where I'm pre-grouting. I've got a picture of the grout is in the middle of the one frame. That's the Spectralock one. It's a pre-mixed epoxy grout. So it'll be really strong. And it's a little trickier to use than standard grout, but I really like using it for a project like this where it needs to be easy to clean.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's the one on the right is the back side of a piece of a section of mesh with mosaic on it with a thin set. So I just thought it was an interesting shot.
No, it's good for people to see the backside, and that you use the white grout, a white thin set, you know, as part of the whole thing, but with it being behind glass.
Yeah, it helps. It helps me to use some more translucent glass because it gives it that white background and makes it opaque.
Right. Exactly.
What happened to the volume? So this is me bringing sections of template on some of the really tricky areas, like under the sink. There were all these shapes that I wanted to make sure I got it right. So I cut the paper template apart and I brought it in and just made all those marks and cuts so that I could then take it back to the studio and match it up. So getting everything as close as possible to the correct dimensions before I brought it here. And this is just continuing the work. Actually, what this is on the one on the left is showing how the wall was before I found out that I had to change the dimensions. And the one on the right is the newly constructed same area. I cut the dragonfly out, and I had to cut a whole section out of the middle and then rework it. And that's something that I showed on I did shoot videos of that to show how I did that in my social media. You can move forward. So here on the left, it shows the dragonfly in its new spot, which will be over the sink. And then the sink area, everything around it, that's a mirror in the middle.
Right.
And that's Banjo in the middle of the whole thing. We have new kittens. And then here on the left is the bathroom before anything went up on the wall. And on the right is me, you know, bringing the sections in and trying to line them up and stack them and get ready to put them on the wall. And then that's Austin on the left helping, we were just mapping it out. So we were taking all the sections and drawing lines around to decide where they would go. So you can kind of see all these marks. I don't know if people can see it in the frame, that I marked up the walls, and it really helped by mocking it up. It helped us figure out, you know, what was the best place to start setting the pieces in, and what was going to be the best place to trim pieces if they needed trimming, and was it lining up correctly. So that was that took one full day, just and that was just 2 walls worth. We spent one day. And so on the right, the second day, I started putting the pieces on the wall, and that was about half a day's work. That frame on the right. And then you can see how I've continued down the wall on the frame on the left. And then on the right, I took a picture before I cut one of the window trim areas out. just to show how I use my ring saw, the Taurus ring saw, in situations like this to cut these specialty areas out.
And you can
I
use the
also
ring
use a
saw
wet
with
saw
the
for
thin
just straight
set, even
cuts.
though, and you can use the ring saw even though it has the grout and the thin set on it. You're able to, the ring saw goes through it.
Yeah, I can't say that the people who make the machine would approve for sure, but I keep extra blades on hand.
Yep.
And it works great. It cuts right through everything. There's something that happened with my sound that suddenly I can't hear you very well, so that's why I'm putting it to my ear.
All right, I'll talk louder. We're almost through this part where it's almost over, and then you can just show them.
Something happened when that call tried to come through. Sorry.
Can you keep going with the slideshow?
Oh, yeah, I think oh, okay. Sorry. So I wanted to show then, okay, so I showed how I cut with a ring saw, the trim area, and then I wanted to show it in place, how it makes it so that it looks really seamless. It just fits right in place. And then on the right, there's that section in the middle with the little frog on top was terrifying because it's such a specific shape and I had to cut it out. And I was so scared I was going to cut it wrong. I measured it over and over again, but and what I did is I was really conservative with the cuts at first, and then I just kept recutting and recutting until it fit. So it fits perfectly now.
That's
thankfully.
Awesome. All right.
And that's it.
Is there any questions for Jenn about this whole process and everything she's been through? I'm sure she'd love to hear from you, and we're really excited to see the final come up onto the walls. Jerry and I will be in Ravenna, Italy by the time you finish up. So we were not able to go live. That's why we were able to go live now. And it was just at the beginning of your installation process. So we are so excited that we all got to see this, Jenn. Thank you so much for coming from the bathroom. And I have one fast question. Did you do that piece that looks like stained glass that's in that little window there?
No.
Someone else did
that's slab glass. And so another artist did that named Tucker Petterill. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I've only seen it written.
That's awesome that you've got more than your art in there. I think that's fantastic. Well,
yeah, she really wanted slab glass windows.
That is awesome. We have a little gift for everyone that has stayed around till the very end. You can, until tomorrow at midnight, get 15% off all of Jennifer's courses. Use the code Jennifer15 and you can start shopping now. And I have a little list here of all of her courses in case you weren't aware. She has 5 of them here at Mosaic Arts Online. You can just go to the search bar, put in Jennifer Kuhns, and it'll show you all 5 of the courses. And getting a 15% discount now is even better, obviously, than the sale we're having in case you were considering it since the end of this talk. Jerry will put the code into our chat here and we'll have it in the comment section. It's good till midnight tomorrow night. So you have a little bit of time to still shop. And if there's any other courses that you're interested, still at Mosaic Arts Online, we are having our summer sale at createartsonline.com and mosaicartsonline.com. And we can't thank you all enough. I thank you all enough for being here and for Jenn able to do this later in the day. And I'm so glad this will live on our YouTube channel forever and ever. And thank you all so much for being here. Jenn, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Not that I can think of. You know, I had mentioned that I do share a lot. I'm an open book. So if anybody's interested in following along on my projects, just find my social media.
Yes.
I'm on all the things.
And Jerry just put your website in the comments as well.
Okay.
Jennifer15. All right, you guys, thank you so much. And we'll see you on our next live event when we plan it and schedule it.
Thank you, Tami. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Sunday.